So hi there, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Robert John Torres, and I'm on the programming team here at Outfest. Thank you so much for joining us at the festival. This is our first ever virtual edition. I think it's only fitting that in the spirit of the LGBTQ plus universe, we are people born of the fighting spirit, and we persevere even in uncertain, tricky times. So if you guys are joining us now, you have most likely just finished watching the effervescent, delightful, inspiring gem that is Gaytino, Made in America, directed by Dan Guerrero, the legendary Dan Guerrero. And I'm very excited to have the creative team behind the film here with us today. So we are short on time, so I want to jump right into it. And if you guys wouldn't be willing to introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Shall I start? Because I'm the oldest.
God,
no. All right, I'm Dan Guerrero, and I am the writer and performer in Gaytino, Made in America. And with me today is Linda Morel, who is my executive producer and my champion and my angel from the beginning to the bitter end, and here she is still alive. And I had two Lindas. I had Linda Mendoza and Linda Morel, two Chicanas, at the helm as executive producers, and they made it happen, and it never would have happened without them. So Linda Mendoza is working today, but Linda Morel is with us.
Thank you so much for joining us, Linda.
Oh, thank you. Longtime friend of Dan's and longtime, he says champion, but I say fan. And I executive produced this piece, traditionally a TV producer, dabbled in some film, but this was really a labor of love, really, truly a labor of love.
I think you can really feel that in the piece, as soon as it starts, these like scenes of backstage, there's this idea of like the excitement of a theatrical performance, and you can really feel that just like purity of joy and like a life well lived really beating in the film. But I want to go all the way back to 2006, which was, from my understanding, where the piece started at the Center Theater Group, shown at the Kirk Douglas. It was a solo show. Can you talk, Dan, about the kind of early genesis of the piece, where your mind was, why you were wanting to tell what is essentially your life story, really?
It is. It's multi-layered, really. The truth is, I had started as a musical performer. I grew up in East LA. I started as a musical performer in New York in 1962. I was 21. And I did that for a good many years. And then I kind of got off the track of performing for 40 years. I was a theatrical agent on Broadway. They've seen the film, so they know the trajectory. But I always thought one day I would return to being a musical performer, thinking, oh, I'll be that crotchety old next door neighbor that's just a pain in the butt, and I'll be funny and I'll be flawless. And so, but I had a very busy career, thank the universe, on producing, directing, etc. So I never really had time. And then I turned 65 and my career came to a screeching halt. It was like someone unplugged my phone. We had phones in those days. And I thought, well, I'm 65, which in Hollywood is like, I mean, unless you're Meryl Streep. And I'm like, well, I'm not dead, there's a whole country out there. And so I actually started to produce and direct live events, lots of things at the Kennedy Center and all over the country. And in the middle of it, the word Gaytino came to me. First thing was the word. And I was watching television, as most Chicanos or Latinos do. Where's a Latino? Where's a Latino? Takes place in LA, no fucking Latino. Can you say fucking on Zoom? And so and then all of a sudden it was a time when there were gay characters springing up, especially on sitcoms, lots of them. And of course I was thrilled, but I thought, oh my God, could I have guessed that gays would step forward in the media in a positive way before Latinos even, So then the word came to me and I thought it was damn clever. So I registered it, and then I didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, well, since my career is not happening, I always wanted to perform. I'm not going to sit on the bench with 5 other old Chicanos to say 2 lines in a sitcom. That's why I wrote a solo show. I was 65. I had never written a play. I had not performed on stage in 35 years since an off-Broadway show in New York. So it made perfect sense to me to write a show, and I did. And because of friends, and that's the truth, the love you're talking about is real. As soon as I wrote it, people started to book in theaters just because they knew who I was and the title. They didn't even ask for the script. And I started to do the show all over the country, trying it out. Friend Diane Rodriguez, who we recently lost, the original director of it, and it took off. And so I did it all over the country for many years, but only 2 or 3 times. You know, people think, gee, he's been performing it for 10 years. He should know the words by now. But I was only doing it 2 or 3 times a year because I was producing and directing it. It came back. And Linda saw it, I think, in the very first reading, and God bless her, she was like, this boy needs help. So she, like so many friends, just shepherded all these years. I'm telling you, people kept coming back to see it and bringing friends. When we went to film it, it was friends at grant positions of giving grants that gave me grants, because the traditional was not working, trust me. But people who knew me and knew the show. And then we did a crowdfunding campaign, and it was hugely successful. We made like $30,000 over what our projected, what we hoped to. But it was friends. Linda brought in friends that didn't even know me, but loved her and did her favors behind the cameras, behind the scenes. It was all friends. So if you feel the love, trust me, it is genuine. I must have done something fabulous in a previous life to have earned this, because not so good this time around. But you know, la-di-da. That's the long story of the show.
Linda, can you talk about when you first encountered Dan and this piece of work, and sort of what drew you to kind of wanting to be, you know, somehow a part of this, you know, lovely little package, and, you know, what was going through your mind at that time?
Well, when I first met Dan, actually, it was on the Alma Awards. We did the Alma Awards, and he was, I think, Dan, it was in the talent department, if I'm not mistaken.
I produced the live event portion that year. They had a live event and a TV.
But a friend of a friend hired me to come in and basically assist Dan in his department. And we had to share this little office. And the minute I made an anti-meme reference, we were done.
Was it?
We were done. We must have recited that movie over months and months. But we got to know each other really well. And he sent out an invitation when he was doing the show, and it was just in a little black box theater. And I just remember, I've seen a lot of one woman, one man shows. I'd never seen anything like that before. Never. The story, from laughing to crying to, you know, and this was with no visuals. This was just Dan telling the story. And to make that much of an impact at that very, very infantile stage of this production was so impactful that it stayed with me for years. And then I would go back every, you know, year or two when he would be doing it locally, and he would add something more. And then there was, you know, there was some visuals, and there was, the music had changed a little bit, and he'd sharpened a lot of the jokes and sharpened a lot of those moments. And the story never got old. It just never got old. And then one day my brother said to me, you know, I took him to see it, and he was blown away. And what he said to me, as a gay man, as a gay Latino, as a Gaytino, said to me, these are the stories that need to live forever, because we don't, him and his generation, he and his generation don't have those stories, aren't told, because they'd always been in the shadows, you know, or very local, but there's never been this story told this way. And he said specifically about Dan sitting at the table, realizing like that he got to the other side of the table in his life when he said, oh my God, I had that moment, you know, and he had something to reference, and he was really excited about it. So when Dan said, let's like, I really, really want to do this, I said, fine, let's do it. I mean, build it and they will come. And he's right. The people that donated and, you know, participated and my crew that didn't know Dan at all, these are people that I work with in the industry that were like, yeah, okay, we'll come and do this for you, you know, non-union, reduced rate, whatever it is. Those guys, these were grips, by the way, that came to me after the first performance and were like, all right, we had no idea what this was. We would have done it for free. Like that, this needs to go to festivals. This is amazing. And these are like straight men that were telling us these stories, you know, giving us their feedback. And I was blown away. And I was like, okay, we really have, I've always known it was special. But when I was actually shooting it and seeing everybody come together after that first performance, everybody had ownership of it. Everybody felt connected to it in some way, shape, or form. And you really, really felt that. And the fact that you say that you can feel the love in it is so validating to me, because it really was out of love, completely.
You know, I think it's you know, of course that these grips, these straight people can really feel what is a great deal of authenticity and heart, and really a universal story of, you know, overcoming shame, whether that is about your sexuality or about your heritage, and really growing into like who it is that you are. And, you know, the solo shows has a long history in the United States in American theater. Whoopi Goldberg, John Leguizamo, Anna Devere Smith, but this one really weaves in the you know, what it means to be a queer person, a gay man specifically, and what it means to be a Chicano and how those intersect. And I was hoping, Dan, you could talk about those two themes and why they were so important to you. I mean, they're literally in the title, Gaytino.
Yes. That was one of the big, I wrote in the first place, it is autobiographical, but I never think of it as my story. I honestly don't. You know, I'm just merely the conduit. I'm telling you what it was like to be a gay Chicano. Well, there's no Chicano word at that time in use in East LA in the 50s. You know, what was New York like as a gay man in the early 60s? I mean, I was there. And sadly, because of the AIDS crisis, we lost a lot of people. So there aren't many my age, you know, stories my age. I'll be 80 in October. So, and I'm hanging on by a thread. So, you know, so it was important for me to preserve those stories and to celebrate both Mexican-American Chicano history and the gay experience as I lived it. Because if I heard one more 22-year-old gay boy go, you couldn't hold hands in New York in the 60s? No, schmuck, no. We were in the shadows in the 60s. I mean, you know, maybe they heard of Harvey Milk. That's as far as they want to go too many times. I know I'm generalizing, but what the hell do I care? So it was important to celebrate those two worlds. So actually how I started the show is, because as you might get, it's storytelling. It's all storytelling. Every single story, I swear, is absolutely true as I tell it. I didn't have to embellish anything. Some of the biggest laughs, you know, the frijoles have been spilled from Carlos, is true. I never had to make up a thing. But what I did, I made two lists. I made a gay list and I made a Chicano list. And I wrote defining light bulb moments. The first time I realized I was gay, the first time this, the first time I felt discriminated against because of and I made these two lists, and each one, oh yeah, there's that story. Oh, this is, they were so clear. And then I started to, you know, mix them up and have them feed each other. I didn't originally expect to make it so, chronological. I didn't. I wanted to mix it up more, but in the end, I really had to. There is some mixing, you know, the Nixon White House story when I'm there, and then to the Clinton White House when my dad gets the medal. There's a few, but it was covering so many years and so much territory, and you were getting so much information. I was afraid people might get confused, or that's why I do that device of 1960, John F. Kennedy elected president, Doris Day still a virgin, Elvis out of the army. So they would always be able to kind of follow where they were in the story, you know. But it was very important for me to tell the Mexican-American Chicano story and what it was like to be gay over the years and the progress we've made. Of course, we have so far to go in both those worlds, but you have to celebrate how far we have come, you know. So I was hoping to keep that balance.
You mentioned your father, and really one of the major kind of like supporting characters, I suppose you could say, in the story is your father, the late Lalo Guerrero. And I was wondering if you could talk about how that was so important, because I think for a lot of people, particularly like young Chicano artists, they're when you're young, there is not a kind of creative presence in those families, at least a way to make money, to show that this is a viable way to support yourself. But you have that, and you talk about it a great deal in this work. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, my dad, Lalo Guerrero, the father of Chicano music, and my boyhood friend, Carlos Almaraz, they were the other reason. You know, that's why, as I say, I don't think of it as my story, because it's really, I wanted to celebrate these two extraordinary men and their contribution not only to our culture, but to me. You know, those were two gigantic forces. You'd have think I'd have turned out better. I mean, these two were really something. And I wanted to celebrate them, you know. And I thought it was important, again, for our young Mexican Americans to know our heroes. You know, they don't know. A younger generation probably never heard of Lalo Guerrero, but they should know who he is and who he was and what his contribution was. You talk to any Los Lobos, Linda Ronstadt, La Marisol, they revere him, you know, they revere him. Dolores Huerta says, you know, nobody was telling our stories but him, you know, especially in the 30s and 40s, if there was any Spanish language music or stories, they were Mexican, not Mexican American. He was a Mexican American. So he was singing about us. He became, as I call him, the musical historian of the people he loved so much. His music, he used to say, well, I only write about what I see, you know, but in doing that, he really painted a vivid portrait of the Mexican experience as he lived it. I picked it up kind of from the 50s to now. His career was in the 30s and 40s and, you know, and that era. And Carlos, who was Mexican born, you know, he came here and suddenly he was Mexican American. And so it was his trajectory as well. So those two forces I wanted to really celebrate. So they're the thread through the entire piece, as you know, to the very end when I lose Carlos and then I lose Dad.
You know, Linda, I'm interested if you could maybe talk about, you know, you guys have, it first existed as a stage piece and now is this film, and it's one thing to make a film, but it's another thing to get it out there. And I'm curious if you could talk about, you know, this is undoubtedly in the distribution landscape is going to be considered niche because it's queer, because it's Chicano. And I was wondering if you could talk about, you know, the work that goes into something that, like, putting this out there.
Well, this first stage was getting from the stage to film. Linda Mendoza, I'm sorry she can't be with us as well today, but she had said at one point that, because I was nervous, you know, how is that going to well, of course, many do it. Whoopi's done it. John Leguizamo's done it, but I'm neither of those two people. So I didn't know how it would transfer, you know. But she said that the very first time she saw it, also in a small venue, as did Linda Morel, she could see it cinematically because, as she put it, when you're watching something on stage, it's all a wide shot. You see the whole thing is a wide shot. And in film, you can get right in there, you know, when I'm in the hospital room with Carlos, you know, the camera's right there. So friends who have seen the show, bless them, 6, 7, 8 times, they come back and bring friends. They liked it even better on film. They liked it better in film. And that's a tribute to the Lindas. You know, they knew how to put it together, how to pull it together. But it was all theater people. You know, my set designer, Efren Delgadillo, is magnificent. I had directed a mariachi opera with a Vargas at the Valley Performing Arts Center, which is now the Soraya. And he was my set designer there. And I came up with an idea for that because it was kind of an intimate opera. And I used it for Gaytino, you know, where I had him build a little jewel box theater on a huge stage. So a solo show, you got to make it intimate, you know. So, but he's a theater set designer, you know, and the projectionist, she had only done theater. So actually it was really the two Lindas who really had television background. And of course, They brought in television people for the technical part. But all the creative folks were all my choreographer, Leti Ibarra. She's a stage person. They were all theater people, you know. And here's the pain in the butt, because there's so much music in it. And of course, I cleared everything. I did everything legally, but thus far I could only clear for film festivals, because they would let me clear. I wanted to clear for the whole world in perpetuity and on the planet Jupiter. And then they go, well, where is it going to play on Jupiter? You know, so you can't, you have to do it a bit at a time. So I did that. We made the deals, fine. But I do have a very prestigious distributor ready to go with it. So then I went to see about fees for that. Oh my God. I don't know if it's going to happen. And there's only 6 of those songs I need to clear, because all the other songs are my dad's. My brother and I own that catalog. But the others, the costs are prohibitive. I mean, they're so high. So I don't quite know how I'm going to make it work, but I guess I will. And actually, my original intent, would I love it to be on Netflix? Yeah. Would I love it to be on Amazon? Yeah. But the truth is, originally, I always thought of it as an educational entertainment for sure. But as an educational piece, I wanted to see in Chicano studies libraries and Chicano study courses. I wanted to be seen. LGBT, you know, I thought of it going into universities, you know. So that may be what happens. I mean, you know, financially, I just may not be able to do the other. But if you're doing it only for educational purposes, you know, maybe that is something I can handle. So I don't know. So it's kind of dangling in the air at the moment. Any ideas, Linda Morel?
I think we keep doing what we have been doing, and I think it's going to land where it's supposed to land, where people can see it. And quite honestly, like I know your question was like, how do you get it out there, because it's queer, it's Latino, but in our current environment, culturally, a lot of eyes have shifted, right? They've shifted to our African American community. They've shifted to the LGBTQ, you know, transgender community. Like, there's been so much in just the last few months uprising where it's like, we're here, you know, like, you have to pay attention now. And I think that with a project like this, that you have to pay attention now, because this is a story that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Quite honestly, you're not going to hear it. It does not exist anywhere. You know, gay uncle maybe telling you a little bit about the 70s or 80s, you know, in New York, but it's not documented unless it's a documentary about Stonewall or, you know, specific events that helped bring the LGBTQ community up. So I think that people are going to want to see and hear this story, because it's not just a like, oh, this was terrible as gay people and this is how we had to live. This is like, this is the story of how we get here, you know, and happiness and love, you know, relationships, working hard, you know, trying to bring in your own culture into your life later in your life. You know, there's a lot of awakening moments. And I think that once the name gets out there, the curiosity, you know, will be piqued. And I have no doubt that this will end up on a bigger platform somewhere. At least that's our hope. And then you don't have to worry about the clearance, Dan.
Yeah, I'm not going to change my name and move to Baja. But you know, darling, thank you for bringing up that it's not, you know, like, oh God, did we suffer? Because that was very much, you know, not by accident. It was by design. I did not want to say, oh God, being gay, you know, in 1950s, think about it. Like I say in the show, there was no out and proud people on magazine covers. There were no movies about it. There was nothing. You knew nothing. I didn't even know what it meant. I knew what it meant. But what it meant, like how you live your life or what my life will be, there was nothing, you know. But I wanted to be celebratory with both those, as you say, how far we have come, but this is how we got there. But I wanted it to be, you know, I didn't want to be beating my chest all night on how we've suffered, you know, both those communities, though we have. And I do make my point of those, but usually it's little and then I'm off to a joke so you don't know you've just been stung, you know.
It's such.
You should say who your brother is, Linda. That makes it all the more impressive.
Oh, he knows. We pre-talked about that.
Well, but the people watching should know. He could use a plug. Give him a plug.
Give him a plug.
Well, my brother is one of the co-executive producers of Queer Eye. And so that makes this project even more important because I'm a straight sister in the gay brother sandwich. And so for them to be able to have access and to see a show like this and share it with other people, I mean, I'm of Mexican and Puerto Rican descent. My older brother's partner is from Kansas and as white as can be. And he said, you know, I'm going to bring David to the show, but I hope he understands a lot of it. And David came out of that show sobbing and laughing and was like, that was the best story, because I don't care what culture you're in, you still, as a gay man, can identify with a lot of like everything in that show. You don't have to be Latino to get it. And I think that's going back to my previous point, is it transcends that. So for having a brother who works on a gay show, you know, it's important in my family. It's really important.
And you know, they are universal themes. It's a father-son relationship. It's a best friend story. They are universal themes, you know. But I do find, sadly, I still think some non-Latinos think, oh, that's a Latino thing, and they don't go. If someone brings them, that's the reaction. But I don't know that they'll always buy a ticket. I found it interesting that as many, I know we have to wrap as well, but I've done tons of universities all over the country. I have never, ever been brought yet by anything other than a Latino organization. Chicano studies, Chicano research, a Latino fraternity, never from a theater department, never from an LGBT department, unless it was a Latina like UCLA, Alicia Gaspar de Alba. Never, not once. That says something.
Well, I can say that you are now a part of the Outfest family.
I'm so proud. I'm so excited.
Queer film festival on the planet.
The best.
And this is going to be seen by such a diverse and interested group of queer people from all experiences and intersections. And we're so, so honored to have this.
I'm honored. Believe me, I'm honored. I'm honored. I really am. Thank you.
That is all the time that we have, unfortunately. But I just want to thank you so much to Dan and Linda and other Linda off wherever she is. Thank you guys truly so much.
Thank you
for watching.
Gracias.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.